She was called the Witch of Wall Street, but not because she cast spells or ran scams. She didn't sell snake oil, gamble on gold, or marry into power. She earned it. She was the richest woman in America at the turn of the 20th century. A master investor, a financial force, a woman who turned pennies into millions in a time when women couldn't even vote. But while names like Rockefeller, Morgan, and Carnegie were etched into marble and memory, Hetty Green, she vanished from the headlines, forgotten by most history books. She didn't throw lavish parties. She didn't build mansions. She didn't flaunt her fortune. She multiplied it. This is the true story of how Hetty Green turned a small inheritance into what would be over $5 billion today, and why you've probably never heard her name. Today on Money Blueprint, we take a closer look at a woman who broke every rule and built her own financial empire, not by luck, not by inheritance alone, but by discipline, strategy, and vision. Henrietta Howland Robinson was born in 1834 in New Bedford, Massachusetts, a booming whaling town where fortunes were made from whale oil and trade. Her family was already wealthy. The Robinsons owned ships and whaling vessels. But Hetty wasn't satisfied with simply being born into money. She wanted to understand it. While other children were playing, 6-year-old Hetty was already sitting with her grandfather, reading him financial newspapers out loud. By the age of 13, she was helping manage the family books. This wasn't a gimmick. She had a mind for numbers, a sharp memory, and an early hunger to understand how money moved. When she turned 20, she began investing in a world where women weren't even allowed to open a bank account without a man's permission. While other heiresses shopped for gowns in Paris, Hetty studied compound interest and read railroad ledgers. And she understood something most people still don't. The power of wealth is not in how it looks, but in how it works. When Hetty's father died in 1865, she inherited about $6 million, the equivalent of over $120 million today. But she didn't see it as money to be spent. She saw it as the capital to be grown. Instead of chasing trends or speculating wildly, she invested in railroad bonds, high-yield mortgages, municipal notes, and real estate. She sought out undervalued assets, especially during times of panic. Her biggest breakthrough came during the Panic of 1873, when markets crashed and banks failed. While others panicked and sold at a loss, Hetty stayed calm. She had cash on hand, something most investors didn't. So while others begged for bailouts, Hetty became the buyer of last resort. She bought mortgages at pennies on the dollar. She scooped up real estate from bankrupt families and businesses. She made deals when no one else could afford to. It was financial jujitsu, and it worked. I buy when things are low and no one wants them. I hold. I wait. That's it. She didn't believe in luck. She believed in timing and liquidity. And she believed in the long game. By the late 1800s, her fortune was estimated in the hundreds of millions. In today's dollars, that puts her wealth at over $5 billion. But wealth didn't bring her admiration. It brought mockery. While the Gilded Age elites flaunted wealth with gold chandeliers and marble fountains, Hetty lived in modest apartments, wore a single black dress, and rode the city streetcars. She refused to pay for expensive offices. She often carried her legal documents and bond papers in a satchel. And the media, mostly run by men, ridiculed her relentlessly. They called her the Witch of Wall Street. Not because she was evil, but because she was a woman who refused to smile, flirt, or behave. They described her as cold, miserly, even unwomanly. But the truth is, Hetty rejected luxury not out of fear, but out of discipline. She believed waste was weakness. She once said, "It is the duty of every woman to learn how to make her own way in the world, whether she is rich or poor." While others sipped champagne, she read balance sheets. While others defaulted on loans, she became the lender, often charging interest rates higher than banks. At one point, Hetty Green was the single largest lender in New York City. Let that sink in. A woman, in an era when women couldn't vote or own property independently in many states, was out-financing the banks. So, how did she do it? Let's break down the Hetty Green money blueprint, a strategy that made her rich without inheritance alone. 1. Live below your means. Hetty could afford almost anything, but she chose almost nothing. Her philosophy? Don't confuse wealth with lifestyle. Wealth isn't for showing off, it's for building freedom. 2. Cash is power. She always kept cash ready, not just for safety, but for opportunity. When markets crashed, she didn't sell, she bought. Cash allowed her to buy distressed assets when everyone else was begging for liquidity. 3. Think independently. Hetty never followed trends. She questioned the herd. She avoided market bubbles. She read deeply and ignored public noise. She valued logic over emotions, facts over feelings. 4. Discipline over emotion. While others were driven by status, greed, or ego, Hetty was clinical. She was patient, calculated, and relentless. She didn't let impulse sabotage her plans. In today's language, she mastered her money because she mastered herself. Now, to be clear, Hetty Green wasn't without controversy. She was notoriously ruthless in court. She had bitter legal battles with family members over will and trust. She was known to sue banks, challenge estates, and navigate the court system with icy precision. Some called her paranoid. Others called her shrewd. But nothing fueled the public fire like the story of her son's leg. Legend says that when her son Ned injured his leg, Hetty refused to pay for a doctor, instead dragging him around town in search of a free clinic. By the time they found one, the delay had caused a serious infection, and Ned eventually lost the leg. Is the story true? Historians argue it's exaggerated and perhaps even fabricated by rivals. There's no solid medical record confirming it, but the media ran with it, reinforcing her image as heartless and obsessed with saving money. And yet, while others fell to scandal, Hetty stayed focused. She didn't waste energy on image. She returned to her ledgers and her legal battles. Hetty Green died in 1916 at the age of 81, leaving behind a fortune estimated at over $100 million. That's more than $5 billion today. She passed most of it to her two children, Ned and Sylvia. Ironically, they lived far more lavish lives than their mother. Ned bought a 400-acre estate and became a yachting enthusiast. Sylvia donated millions to charity and lived in luxury hotels. But Hetty? She didn't want statues or streets named after her. She didn't want a foundation or a legacy of grandeur. She wanted freedom. She wanted control. And she wanted to prove that a woman's mind could move markets. Today, there are no skyscrapers in her name, no best-selling biographies, no public schools teach her strategies. But her story still matters, because she showed that wealth isn't about privilege, it's about principle. It's not about luck, it's about leverage. And it's not about being seen, it's about seeing clearly. What we can learn from her story: Hetty Green wasn't just a financial genius. She was a philosopher of money, a strategist who played the long game while the world chased glitter. She didn't have a personal brand. She had personal power. She didn't go viral. She went deep. So what can we learn? You don't need flash to build a fortune. You don't need to be loud to be legendary. What you need is clarity, discipline, and control. So the next time someone tells you wealth is about luck, inheritance, or being in the right room, tell them about Hetty Green. And if you want more stories like this, of forgotten wealth, misunderstood greatness, and financial wisdom that still applies today, subscribe to Money Blueprint. Because here, we don't just make money, we make it matter. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.